Hello viewers, and welcome to this walkthrough video in which I will explain how to write or improve on effective counterarguments and rebuttals for argumentation. Alrighty. Sorry that it's a bit blurry. Here are some handy ways that you can introduce a counterargument. Many people believe that technology does not belong in education. Many people argue that it is often imagined that bullying in schools is not adequately dealt with. Let's try another one. One could easily suppose that when children are segregated in primary school by gender, they learn more effectively. It might appear as if teachers do not care, but they do. Use these prompts. These are nice ways to make clear to your reader or your viewer, your listener, that you are introducing a counter-argument. Now here are some handy ways of introducing the rebuttal, the refutation to the counter-argument. What this argument fails to consider is, does not take into account is, overlooks is. This is a nice one. This view seems convincing, plausible, persuasive at first, but, and again, here is where you argue against the counter-argument. While this position is popular, it is not supported by the facts, logical, it is impractical. Although the core of this claim is valid, it suffers from a flaw in its reasoning, in its application, in its effectiveness. Use these. Let's look at an example. Okay, before we look at counterarguments and rebuttals, we need to look at what the thesis actually is. What is the person arguing? Here's one. It is indisputable that schools must strive to do more to curb bullying behavior. Indeed, educational institutions must attempt to address the problem with everyone who may be affected. This should include the bullies themselves, the victims, both parties' parents, the educators, and indeed, the whole community. All right, so this is the person's thesis, that schools must do more to curb bullying, and that doing more must involve more parties. Let's look at a counter-argument to this. And what we see is that the counter-argument is in red, the rebuttal is introduced in blue, and then the link back to the thesis is in purple. Skeptics claim that schools and educational institutions are already doing everything possible to prevent bullying. Anti-bullying programs and support groups are just a few of the measures which have been put in place. Indeed, many claim that schools have done and are doing their fair share to eliminate bullying behavior. So here's our counter-argument, and we know it is a counter-argument because it's introduced by clear terminology. Here's the rebuttal. What this argument does not take into account, however, is the nature of these sorts of programs and their lack of effectiveness. Research conducted into secondary schools in Hong Kong revealed that, although the schools put programs and guidelines in place which had been devised by governmental experts, the majority of bullying victims continued to be bullied and the perpetrators continued to bully and harass others. In fact, the problem actually worsened because the programs were mainly focused on the bullies themselves. As a result, the relationship between the bullies and their victims was made worse, and the harassing behavior actually increased. What is more, these intervention programs were not designed to tackle the problem from all sides, but focused specifically on punishing the perpetrators. And now we need a link back to the thesis, right? This hammers home the argument. Schools must do more to combat and deal with such malicious behavior involving all the people concerned, the bullies themselves, victims, parents, educators, and indeed the whole community whenever possible. So this is the way a paragraph should be set up when you introduce the counterargument, the rebuttal, and the link back to your thesis. Let's look at one more example. Okay, here's the thesis. The person is arguing that grades are harmful as they support bad behavior like cheating, create a lack of motivation, and inhibit actual learning. Learners do not benefit from grades. Instead, they learn from constructive and fitting feedback and feed forward. Grades are demotivating and need to be a thing of the past, replaced by formative assessments, creating an environment where learners are responsible for and in control of their achievements. So if we boil this down to one main bullet point, the person is arguing that grades are bad and feedback is better. What might be a counter-argument to this? Well, critics may claim that moving toward a system of formative assessment could well be a difficult process for teachers to embrace. Many teachers at present are stuck in a system and have only ever used a letter-based or numerical grading system. They have had no experience with formative assessment and feedback. Teachers ask what such reform will mean and how much work will be involved. Course books may need an overhaul, for instance, and providing formative feedback to each and every student will be a difficult and time-consuming task. Learners as well might be resistant as they have become accustomed to working within a grade-based system. Aha, it's a pretty good counter-argument, but the rebuttal is better, or it makes the argument, the main thesis really clear. There is no denying that such educational reform will require time and hard work. However, the detractors' arguments hold no merit because moving from grades to feedback is a goal that can be reached, perhaps not immediately, but eventually. For example, instead of providing learners with only failing grades, teachers will also provide formative feedback. In addition, targets for changing the current system can be set years into the future. The fact is, undoubtedly, things need to change. The system in Finland can provide an example that this aim is achievable, and thus, educators must strive to move away from grading as an end goal and embrace a system of providing feedback. So again, this is how your argument, your paragraph should be set up. First, introduce what the critics claim, the opponents, the supporters of the opposite side. Then you rebut, refute, reject, argue against the opposite side. And then you link right back to your original thesis, okay? This makes it clear and readable and effective in terms of argumentation. I do hope this walkthrough has helped, and I look forward to reading your writing. Bye for now.